Good evening. My name is Juan Pablo Murillo, and I will be presenting the life and analysis of Steve Paul Jobs. Introduction and context of the leader. When we were asked to write an analysis on the leader, I really didn't know who to write about or interview for that matter. I first wanted to interview my company CEO from the gas company, Dennis Ariola, but was not able to arrange some time with him because of our conflicting schedules. So I've always been interested in Steve Jobs, and that will be the individual that will be analyzing on this presentation. In order to know about the roles Steve Jobs had in a number of organizations, we need to know first about his humble beginnings. Knowing where he came from and what he was all about can give us a look back at the way he was as a leader. Steve Paul Jobs was adopted at an early age due to family issues with both his biological parents. Jobs' biological mother's father did not approve of her being pregnant at an early age and did not care for her getting married to the father of the baby. His biological parents, especially his mother, was a very educated woman that only wanted another couple that was educated enough to care for young Jobs. Though his adopted parents were not educated, Paula Reynolds Jobs and Clara Jobs, they promised the biological mother of Steve that they will motivate him to have an education when he got older. When Steve got to school at Reed College in Oregon, he was not too interested and just dropped off after his first 6 months in school. For the next 2 years, he would go to classes that had nothing to do with his major or concentration. He mainly was interested in classes that had to do with him being imaginative. While in high school and college, he met a few of his colleagues that he would work with and eventually initiate some of the biggest corporations in this country, like Disney's Pixar, Next Inc., and Apple. He is one of the masterminds of this new technology era that we live in and has altered the way we will forever communicate. Steve Jobs was not only a chairman at Apple, he was also the co-founder and CEO of the organization. As the leader of the organization, he controlled and developed the development of most, if not all, products that were built at Apple. He also oversaw how the product got sold and distributed at the retail stores and online stores. Jobs had control of everything that had to do with the company until he got very sick and had to step down from his post in 2011. This man did not formulate the many products at Apple, but he did know what he liked and how to market his product. The leader's approach. After reading a few articles and a couple pages from a few books, I appreciated the way Steve Jobs handled his business. He was a man of pure intellect that wanted perfection, but for what reasons? Did he want to make all of the money in the world or be known for his triumphs? All that this man wanted was to build a great company. He was a visionary that sadly did not care if he affronted anyone, not even his nearest colleagues and venture partners. He was a man that wanted results at whatever cost, yet what intrigued me the most is that people still wanted to work for him and especially with him. It was his charisma and focus that made individuals follow him in his antics. He was a charismatic leader, but he was also obsessed with perfection to the point of getting dismissed from some organizations, even at Apple. His contributions. Steve Jobs had many contributions to his organizations and the world. Not only did he change his organization and brought it back from ruin, but he also brought us pioneering technology. Jobs was an innovative leader that also had a hunger for creating what he advertised. Though he did not create many, if not all, products, he was always part of the process. He was someone that was a leader that was ruthless but challenged you as a follower. People wanted to work for this man and wanted to be part of his perfection Jobs created. What he brought to this organization was complete and uninterrupted focus. His controversies. The great Steve Jobs was not a perfect man and was not as flawless as he seemed to be portrayed. At the end of his career is where things started coming out to light, but don't believe it has damaged his image or legacy. One of the major issues that has come to light after his death was a class action suit against him and a few members of the Apple board of directors. The class action lawsuit has to do with Apple not being truthful with the amount of storage their devices actually have. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to know how Steve would have handled this predicament, but knowing his track record, I'm sure he would have handled it as the great businessman that he was. Another thing that I saw that was a controversy is that there were many counterparts of Steve that particularly did not care for him or his way of doing, especially Dell's co-founder or founder, Michael Dell. They had a dispute that started in 1987 and didn't end until 1997. This tells me that Jobs was competitive, ruthless, and focused as a leader. Apple essentially, Apple Inc. essentially was Steve Jobs, and we will have to wait and see what becomes of this organization without this great leader. His legacy. Steve Jobs was an inspirational leader that changed the way we communicate and connect with each other. We always read in our history books about people like Michelangelo, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, etc., but we didn't have the chance to experience the revolution firsthand. Some of us have, though. Steve Jobs brought that to us, and we are now appreciating what was an idea many years ago. His legacy, or as I like to point out or call it, his gift to the world was a chance to experience a revolution in technology. I did not know much about Steve Jobs when I started doing research for this project, but another thing that I liked about him was that he didn't start as a philanthropist, but ended up being one. He actually was didn't want to do any charity work or wanted to be seen. He wanted that money or that money that people invest um, in charities and what have you. He actually thought that that money should have been maybe invested to, the new technology that they're working on. But I guess he did help out with the. Let me take. He did do some charity work. He was a secret philanthropist, and he did actually donate a lot of money. The leadership lessons. Steve Jobs was a man that wanted perfection, and for the most part, he got what he wanted. He was a man that was very smart and knew what he was. So he was never shy to let people know what he was thinking or what the expectations were. What we might call Steve Jobs is a transformational leader, and he essentially had almost all the factors to be one. The first factor speaks of leaders being or acting as strong role models. Steve knew that lots of clever people surrounded him, and he always tested and pushed their limits. Still, people didn't quit, but emulated him even more. A second factor of from the transformational leader model is called inspiration or inspirational motivation. This is where a leader has really elevated expectation from his or her subordinates. People knew how demanding he was, but that was never a problem to anyone who worked for him or with him. His followers were committed to his visions, and having that devotion to a leader created a connection with the organization and, of course, Steve. Not everything Steve did was perfection. Of course, he had his flaws. One of the factors Steve did not have much of was individualized consideration. This is where a leader wants to listen and act as if they are mentors. As At the beginning of his reign, he did not have a lot of these factors, but eventually, with time and experience, he got better at being more of a vulnerable leader. So with that, this concludes my presentation. Hopefully you guys liked it, and you guys have a good night. Goodbye.